I saw when the ground for the first time drank the blood of an innocent. I saw the sky fall silent, and a mother's heart break in silence. This is not just a story of two brothers. It is the story of a choice, of a heart corrupted by envy, of the weight of a decision that changed the course of humanity. Today, on the sacred journey, we will witness the moment when sin not only entered man, but began to control him. Come with me in this moving narrative about Cain and Abel, the first tragedy recorded in the scriptures. In Cain's eyes, there was something that no man had felt until then. It was more than anger. It was the pain of not feeling accepted, of not being enough, a flame that, when not contained, turns into insanity. And in the end, I want to know, do you believe that the human heart still carries the same impulse as Cain? Stay with me until the last second, because the revelation of this story can change the way you see the world around you. After Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, their lives changed completely. Now, far from the direct presence of God, they had to work the land with sweat and pain. And it was in this new world, marked by the consequences of sin, that their sons were born, Cain and Abel. Cain was the firstborn. From an early age, he showed himself to be strong, determined, and passionate about the land. He was a farmer. His pleasure was in the soil, in the plants, in the harvests. Abel, the younger brother, was different. He had a more sensitive heart, a calmness that made him loved by everyone. His work was with the animals. He was a shepherd and treated each one of them with care and affection. Both grew up under the shadow of the memories of Eden. Their parents often told them what life was like before the fall, and how God's presence was real and palpable. This shaped the way Cain and Abel saw the world. But even though they were children of the same parents, their choices and spiritual paths would be very different. And it would be precisely this difference that would give rise to the greatest family tragedy in history. Their childhood was full of teachings. Adam and Eve, still marked by regret, tried to show their children the importance of staying close to God. At each sunrise, the brothers would see their parents pray, seeking forgiveness and guidance. But while Abel absorbed this with humility, Cain carried a sense of injustice that grew over time. As they grew older, the contrast between the two intensified. Where Abel saw God as a loving father, Cain saw him as a severe judge. This silent difference, imperceptible to human eyes, would soon become the root of a tragic decision. As time passed, Cain and Abel learned the importance of worshiping God. Adam and Eve taught them that even outside of Eden, the Creator was still worthy of honor, and that all work should bring praise to Him. Then the day came when the brothers decided to offer a sacrifice. Cain, a farmer, brought fruits from the land. They were certainly beautiful, perhaps the best of the harvest. But his offering came more from duty than from the heart. Abel, on the other hand, carefully selected a perfect lamb, the firstborn of his flock. He knew that true sacrifice came with surrender and humility. The intention of the heart weighed more than the material value of the offering. Abel presented himself to God with reverence and obedience, Cain with formality and pride. God, who sees beyond appearances, accepted Abel's offering with joy because it reflected sincerity. But Cain's was rejected, and that consumed him. The rejection ignited in Cain a feeling of inadequacy. Instead of seeking understanding, he sank into resentment. He began to compare his offering, his value, his existence. He felt humiliated, not by God, but by the reflection of Abel's pure heart. The altar where the offerings were made became, for Cain, a symbol of division and pain. And instead of bowing before God and repenting, he distanced himself even further, nurturing a dark feeling that began to dominate his heart. It was as if the rejection wounded his pride to an irreversible point. He began to see Abel no longer as a brother but as a rival, a threat that needed to be eliminated so that he could recover his wounded dignity. Cain could not hide his dejection. His face darkened. His steps became heavy. He did not understand why God had accepted Abel's offering and refused his. But what ate him up the most was the brightness in his brother's eyes. God, in his infinite mercy, approached Cain. He spoke to him. He warned him, "Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do well, sin lies at the door. It wants to conquer you, but you must master it." It was as if God gave him a second chance, a warning, a light. But Cain ignored it. He fed his anger, watered his wounded pride, and the seed of envy grew within him. His countenance became dark, his thoughts chaotic. Envy stopped being a feeling and became an intention, a plan, a burden. Every time he saw Abel, a whirlwind of emotions took hold of him. He felt small, despised, forgotten. He began to avoid his brother, to respond coldly. But inside, the flame of anger was already burning, and so Cain began to tread a path of no return, where silence hid a storm that was about to explode with full force. In the lonely early mornings, while everyone else slept, Cain lay awake. He relived the moment of rejection. He heard and reread in his mind every word of God, but instead of regret, he felt anger. His soul became a dry field ready to burn. One morning, Cain called Abel to the field. The sun was still rising on the horizon, gilding the fields and casting soft shadows over the land. It was a common invitation between brothers like so many others. Abel, with a pure heart and without suspicion, accepted. But inside Cain, everything was boiling. Envy had turned into hatred, and hatred into a tragic decision. Every step he took beside his brother brought him closer to an abyss. Arriving at the field, far from the eyes of his parents and the rest of the family, Cain stopped. He looked at Abel. Perhaps he hesitated for a moment, but the voice of anger spoke louder than that of reason. And there, in a moment of uncontrolled fury, Cain attacked Abel. The land that had previously produced fruit now received the innocent blood of the first murdered man in history. Abel's scream echoed through the field, a sound that broke the peace of creation and rose to the heavens. The earth was stained red, and the silence that followed was heavy, eternal. Cain fell to his knees. His hands trembled, stained with blood. His eyes, wide open, stared at his brother's lifeless body. Reality hit him hard. He had committed the irreparable. The ground seemed to reject him. The air became dense, and at that moment, the sky opened up to a sentence that would change his life forever. God spoke to Cain. His voice came not with fury, but with deep pain, the pain of a father who sees a son lost. "Where is Abel, your brother?" God asked. Cain answered coldly, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" But God already knew. He knew everything. And his next words echoed like thunder. "The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." Divine judgment was inevitable. God, just and holy, could not ignore such wickedness. But he was also merciful, and so he pronounced the sentence, "Now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it will no longer yield its strength to you. You will be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth." Cain, overcome with despair, cried out, "My guilt is greater than I can bear." He feared being killed by others. He feared total rejection. But God, even in the face of sin, placed a mark on Cain, a sign that no one should kill him. It was a mixture of judgment and mercy, an eternal reminder of what had happened. God's presence departed, and Cain departed, taking with him the weight of fratricide, the emptiness of guilt, and the loneliness of one who rejected redemption. When Adam and Eve learned what had happened, their hearts were broken. They had already lost paradise, but now they had lost a son, and in a way, two. Abel was dead, and Cain, though alive, had become an outsider, an exile from everything he had known. Eve's grief was indescribable. She remembered Abel's smile, the way he tended the sheep, the softness of his voice as he prayed. Adam, silent, wept as he looked up to the sky. He knew that the sin that had begun in Eden was now bearing its bitterest fruit. Death had entered the world, not just physical death, but spiritual, emotional, the kind that destroys bonds. They wondered, where did we go wrong? But they knew that the root of it was their initial disobedience. Sin begets more sin, and the price was too high. Yet they kept praying, worshipping, and trusting that one day God would bring redemption. For in the midst of their pain, there was a promise. From their descendants would come one who would crush the serpent's head. The story of Cain and Abel is more than just an ancient tale. It is a mirror that reflects the dilemmas of humanity to this day. How many times do we let envy dominate us? How many times do we ignore the voice of God that warns us, that offers us a chance to change? Cain had that opportunity, but he didn't want it. His story is a warning. Sin begins in the heart, and if it is not confronted, it turns into tragedy. But there is also hope. God did not abandon humanity. Even after the first murder, he still spoke, still marked, still protected. His justice is perfect, but his mercy is eternal. Today, when we hear about Cain and Abel, we are invited to reflect on our own paths. What are we offering to God? How do we deal with rejection? How do we treat our brothers? May this story awaken in us the desire to be like Abel, sincere, obedient, humble, and that when envy or anger knock on the door, we may be able to dominate them and not be dominated by them.